If you want to understand what's going on politically in terms of what's in the various charges that are now up against Trump, one has to realize that the information sphere you live in is a completely different information sphere than other people live in. Depending how you get your information, you're likely to look at things from an extreme view from one side, another, or even multiple different views, depending on what the sources are trying to get you to understand or the narrative they want you to follow. So, some of this will be a little new to you, but hopefully not so far out that you just go, where on earth did you come up with that? So, is what's going on a form of justice or lawfare? So, what do we mean when we say the term uh, lawfare? Well, that's essentially when you're using a justice system of a country to either punish somebody or cause harm or detriment to them without any consideration of justice. So it would be the equivalent of they used to talk about these lawsuits called slap lawsuits when somebody in the public sphere was saying something that people didn't like, so they'd hit them with a lawsuit from a very large firm, hoping that because the person who was defending didn't have the economic means, they would just go, okay, well, I'll just roll over and give up on this rather than fight it. Uh, Another form of lawfare is what kind of happens in divorce courts when, in some cases, one party or both parties deliberately drag on the process in order to deplete the funds of the other one. The goal is not to come to an equitable solution, but is to cause damage. Now, this is always something it's really hard for people to grasp, but it's the way you always have to come back to things, or at least 90% of the time. Most things in our political system can be understood if you think of them in terms of fundraising for a campaign. And I'm not talking about as like it's like raising funds for a campaign. I'm saying it's exactly raising funds for a campaign. So let's get to the bottom of this. The background issue really is President Biden. So we're in a position, and we have to admit that Biden, in some form, is probably not a fully capable president. Now, you can go all the way to the point where you think, uh, perhaps he's getting some kind of pep pills that gets him going for about an hour so that he can show up in front of the press and he's drooling the rest of the time. Or considering his age and the various things we're seeing, he has to have guidance to make it through the day. Now, if you were a staff member in the executive branch under this circumstance, you have to admit it's quite kind of ideal. It's like being in a workplace where the boss pretty much just says, okay, yeah, whatever the way you want to do it, go ahead and do it. Well, those are enjoyable positions to be in. So you have to imagine that Joe Biden's staff is in a similar position. Here are people who are probably at the pinnacle of power they're ever going to achieve in their lives. Most of them are never going to see a higher level in government. And they get a little something extra. They probably got at least a lot more leeway than some of their predecessors might under somebody like Obama or Bush or Clinton. Uh, so it's a place you would like to be in if you were a political person. So it's in their best interest that if Biden is in any way capable of showing up in public and at least presenting, it's in their best interest that Biden runs again. Uh, but at the same time, they all have to be realists. They know, because of his age, he may not live to the next election, or he could have some form of impairment that makes it impossible to either make it to the election or continue in office for another term. So you have a faction that has that interest in mind. Now, another thing in our political system that's important to understand is as long as the sitting president is running for office, it's very, very bad form if you want the party support to announce a campaign. So somebody like RFK Jr., who already knows he's not going to get the support of the party, feels free to run for office. Somebody like Gavin Newsom out in California realizes he can't step on toes, so therefore he can't announce a campaign and he can't fundraise. And that's very important to understand. If somebody like Gavin Newsom is the person who many in the party and he think should be the one to succeed Biden, uh, they're in a bad place because they can't fundraise until Biden steps away from the picture. So let's delve a little bit more into the problem they face. See, the big problem is when Biden was nominated and he won, nobody suspected they'd see this guy again. No one anticipated Trump would run. Uh, One of the things that Trump has a huge advantage on in terms of Democrats who might replace Biden is Trump can fundraise freely. Somebody like Newsom can't. Uh, Something that's specific to the way Trump campaigns is his campaigns are far cheaper to run than a Democratic campaign. So he doesn't even need to raise as much in terms of cost per vote, which ultimately is how a campaign is rated. And at this point, Trump is way ahead of the GOP pack. Uh, Nobody is really broken out in the Democratic field. So you have a position where you have somebody like Trump, if he makes it all the way through the nominating process and is nominated as the GOP candidate, but at the same time Biden doesn't make it, Trump would have a huge advantage over the Democrats in that he's been able to fundraise for 2 years solid, and whoever is planning to take over for Biden is basically hamstrung until Biden steps out of the picture one way or the other. So we need to digress just a little bit for context. So in this country, we have had a combination of constitutional concepts, legal groundwork from the constitutional conventions, tradition, customs, courtesies, that all deal with avoiding with the idea of arresting Congress people and presidents and candidates running for office. The reason for this should be fairly obvious. This is the reason why we have impeachment uh, in our system in the first place. This is so that there is an alternate remedy other than the legal system. You don't want the legal system to be used to prevent people from running. You don't want the legal system to be used to prevent government officials from doing their jobs. Uh, Again, this is where the impeachment process comes from. It is a political remedy to crimes or things that are just basically unseemly that the political class decides that they need to use as a tool to take somebody down when that becomes a thing. Arresting political candidates, uh, putting them on trial, etc., is seen as a very third world thing, a very banana republic type thing, something we've pretty much avoided in this country up until now. So let's take an example. Like when Hillary Clinton was a candidate for president, she was probed for mishandling of classified information. Now, if you were in the military like me, you are well aware that what she did was actually a major offense. If it were I who had done those things, I would have at least got kicked out of the military, and I probably would have seen prison time. For what she did, she probably should have gone to prison. if she wasn't a candidate. She didn't go to prison. She didn't get charged. And in my opinion, that's a good thing. That's the way the system's supposed to work. If she had been elected and the classified information thing was considered to be uh, that big of a problem, they could have then impeached her at that point. So, based on how things are supposed to run, Trump should not be facing the justice system either. Now, some people say, oh, nobody's above the law. Well, yeah, but the thing is you can have a system where everybody running for office is the target of lawfare, or you can have the system we had before. There isn't really a compromise point. Unfortunately, this is a genie out of the bottle situation. In the end, we're going to have some kind of formalized rewriting of how the system works. By the way, if you think the system's broken now, wait 4 years. What we're doing right now is going to turn politics into an absolute hellscape, which is an outcome most people playing the lawfare game right now are going to end up regretting greatly. So, what's happening to Trump? Is it lawfare or is it justice? Now, to understand that, you need to basically put it into perspective. Most of these potential crimes have been known for years. Most of them could have been brought forward very quickly without any particular wait time. Uh, Not all of them required an incredibly long amount of time to research. Most of them were pretty much information out in the open. Most, if not all, of those potential crimes have no statute of limitation, or they have limitations that expire many years out. So, there is no legal reason why these charges have to occur at the time they're occurring. The timing doesn't seem particularly coincidental. This timing seems to be very much planned. The outcomes of most of these charges are not sure things. A lot of these are considered novel attacks against a presidential candidate. The Supreme Court will ultimately have to weigh in on a lot of these. And this is something to understand, really important. Okay, nothing short of the death penalty carried out before January 20th, 2025 prevents Trump from taking office if he wins. What I'm saying is he could go to prison. He could get 1,000 years behind bars. If he wins the election, he's still the president and he's still going to be running things. So this is something all these people who are shooting all these lawsuits up know damn well. They know exactly that they aren't stopping him from getting to office. So if the timing is intentional, what is the point of all this? Well, campaign money can be used for litigation and defense against prosecution. Because the Democrats must plan on Biden running, and no one else can fundraise until he says he's not running. The primary purpose of these lawsuits is to drain Trump's campaign resources and divert his time from the campaign trail. If Biden can't campaign, then Trump won't be allowed to either. If Biden's successor can't fundraise, Trump won't be allowed to spend his funds on his campaign. Yes, it really is that banal. But, in my opinion, it gets worse. Both the national level parties are fundraising off this, and I mean both Republicans and Democrats. They are basically putting in, if you don't get these, you wouldn't believe how laughably stupid these things are, where you'll basically get something in your email or mail or whatever it says, send us $20. We're charging Trump with X, Y, and Z. Blah blah blah. See him behind bars. Well, your $20 isn't going to go to actually putting Trump in jail. It's going to put $20 in somebody's campaign fund who's running for office. And if it's the DNC doing it, they're going to spread that money amongst the party. And the RNC is doing the exact same thing. But a little bit worse. A lot of the players who are putting up these various lawsuits and charges are actually trying to build their future political careers from it. Fani Willis, the prosecutor from Georgia, I can guarantee you, and I'll take any bet. You make a bet, and I'll take any odds that Fani Willis ends up running for Congress or governor within the next 6 years. Guarantee you that's part of the motivation that's going on there. And not to say that this particular lawfare has been used against lower level candidates for the same purpose. So, what about the insurrection or the January 6th parade, depending on how you want to look at it? Okay, none of the charges are related to what happened on January 6th in Washington, D.C. Please read them. Prove me wrong. None of the charges are related to what happened on January 6th. Now, the political people attempting to use the 14th Amendment are attempting novel legal maneuvers. It's never been done before. Since Trump has not been charged with insurrection, ultimately any attempt to remove him from the ballot will eventually be overturned. Because this is novel, it probably will be the Supreme Court that does it. So why do this? Why are these various lawsuits coming up saying, hey, Trump was fomented an insurrection, so therefore he's not qualified to be on the ballot in this state? It's pretty much more of the same. First, Trump's going to have to at least fight one of these to a conclusion to create the precedent where the other states can't do it. So once again, it's to bleed Trump's campaign of money. It also, once again, creates an item to fundraise and campaign from. I guarantee you, at this moment, there are Democrats and Republicans receiving fundraisers, flyers in their mail and emails and whatever sources else they get their fundraising information from, saying, keep Trump off the ballot in Colorado, send $20. And there's people doing it. And some of these people are creating notoriety for future political office runs. So, what's the bottom line to all this? Okay, first, the idea that Trump is going to be removed from his campaign due to lawfare is highly unlikely. And it's not the goal of this, no matter what people are saying. The goal is purely to make it harder for Trump to get elected. The other main thing to take from this, it's a long way to November 2024. And who's running now? And who ends up winning? And who ends up in the lead? And who's nominated and everything else is very much up in the air. We may not even see any of the personalities in play now at the finishing line when things come to it. So, what do you think in the comments below? Were you aware that a lot of this is actually just fundraising tactics? Do you think there's actually a charge against Trump for insurrection out there? Do you think any of these things will actually bear fruit, other than possibility of maybe some people who would vote for him deciding they won't because of charges actually being, where he's basically charged guilty of something? Tell me in the comments below. Tell me what you think. Please smash the like button. If the YouTube algorithm has brought you here and you're not a regular subscriber, please look at my other titles. I have a lot of different things I talk about. And if you know somebody who might find this interesting, please share it with them. Thank you for spending time with me this evening. Hope to see you again in a future video.